Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. This is part 4 of working through the Retro2 machine over on Hack the Box. Now what's a little bit different about me, if this is the first video you're watching in the series, is I did not prepare ahead of time. This is me going through the machine completely blind, going through it live, giving you my full thought process and my methodology, and showing you all the areas that I struggle with. And just want to let you know, I do this for a living. I am a pen tester and I still struggle with like all of these machines. I get stuck, I fall in a rabbit hole. So if you do as well, that is okay. You can still get into the field. CTFs and pen testing are a little bit different. I'll make a video about that sometime as well. You'll also notice that there is chat up here. I am making this video while I am live streaming, and I live stream all of the time. Right now I'm live streaming on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays and Friday nights, and I would love to have you join me for a live stream. Make sure you subscribe and hit the little bell notification so that you're notified the next time I go live. Hey, real quick, if you appreciate my content, one of the best ways you can support me is by enrolling in one of my courses or become a member over on Ko-Fi. I currently have 3 courses available right now. The first one is Introduction to Hacking Methodology. If you are new to offensive security and CTFs and ethical hacking, this course is for you. It's beginner level, but will bring you up to speed rather quickly. My second course is Introduction to AWS Pen Testing. This will take you from beginner level to intermediate in the field of AWS pen testing and cloud pen testing. And finally, my latest course is Hands-on Phishing. This will teach you to do full phishing campaigns from the perspective of a pen tester or a red teamer. I cover everything from purchasing domains to configuring DNS and TLS to using GoPhish and Evil Jinx to do full phishing campaigns to bypassing MFA to even spoofing telephone numbers so you can do pretext calling alongside of phishing. And over on Ko-Fi, I have resume reviews, mock interviews, different membership levels, and you can even get my courses on Ko-Fi a little bit cheaper just due to the revenue share. So hey, whether you purchase my courses on Simply Cyber Academy or over on Ko-Fi, that really is the best way you can support me. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me, and hey, enjoy the rest of this video. All that being said, let's dive in where we left off in part 3. So here is part 4, and looking at our notes, we ended with initial access and looking at BloodHound, and we have access as the LDEP reader account. Now, I don't know about you, but when I am working through a machine on Hack the Box or Try Hack Me or whatever platform that you want to choose, when I'm working on a machine, it usually takes me multiple days. I'll spend an hour poking at it here, another hour the next day, and I just continually work on it until it is solved. But when I'm not actively working on it, I'm still thinking about the machine. Same with pen tests. When I'm not actively pen testing, but I'm on like a 5-day project, I'm still thinking through like, what is an attack path that I should try? And it's been about a week since I was at this machine. It was post or pre-DEF CON when I was first looking at this machine, and this is called Retro2. Now, one of the machines I solved on stream before was Retro1, and Retro1 had to do with pre-2000 computer accounts. What's significant about those is it's a misconfiguration, or maybe it's the default configuration, but if a computer account is set up in that way, the password by default is the same as the computer name. So if the computer name, for example, is HackSmarter $ as a computer account, the password would be HackSmarter. So I'm thinking, hey, maybe the next step is we have to figure that out. Maybe there is a computer account in the system that has the same password as the user, or the same password as the user or the computer name. There's a few different ways that we can check this. I believe this query is actually built into netexec. I think I discovered that when I was doing Retro1. And I also think potentially we can check that with BloodHound. I'm not entirely sure on that though. So let's jump back over to our attack machine. And here I am in BloodHound. And looking over at what queries we are able to do, is there a way that I can just list... We have BLN01. That's our main computer machine. How about computer domain users? Surely there's a query that you can just show like, here are all of the computer accounts. I'm almost certain it's built into the community edition of BloodHound. Maybe it's not built into this older one, but Nevertheless, I'm almost certain we can do this with netexec, and this is where our notes come in handy. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a moment because I can't showcase everything in my notes. But what I'm doing right now is I'm just going into my notes. I'm going to pull up our notes from the first retro machine. And I'm going to click into those. And this is why I think taking good notes is important, because you can reference your notes. So here I am on my first one, and you can actually see that this page is live. If you go back to my retro walkthrough, I shared my full notes at the end of it, so you can actually have access to these notes. But when we did the original retro machine, we used netexec to find pre-created computer accounts. And so here's the syntax right here. We specify our user and our password, and there's a module called pre2k. I want to go ahead and try that with our current credential. So let's go over to this machine here. I'm going to open up a new tab. We'll do bash. I'm going to rename this tab. Oh, I can't rename by double clicking. All right, we'll rename it BloodHound. Maybe. And this is parent terminal. That's fine. I'm just going to zoom in. Maybe not that much. Like so, that you can see it okay. And let me jump over to our initial user, because I don't remember what it was. So here was this initial user. Let's make sure this still works now that we're on this new session. Oh, and Kenny's already ahead of me. He already read my notes before I did. Kenny's a wizard, guys, when it comes to hacking, so he knows his stuff. But if I do -m module, I actually think it needs to be LDAP. So let me jump over to here and change this to LDAP. And we'll do dash module pre2k, I believe. Hit enter. I wonder if the version of netexec on the pwn box is outdated and does not have this module. That must be the case. Let's see. Oh, wait, I'm looking at the wrong notes. Because that's definitely a module in netexec. Okay. Well, here, I'm going to stop sharing again because there's another machine I did that I could do an LDAP query to find this. Let me see if I can find my LDAP query real quick from my notes. Let's see. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Yes. So here was another time. I think we can send it this query and it will do the same thing. Let me go ahead and give that a shot. Okay. That actually did work. So let's dive into this. Like, what is this all showing us? So we're looking at this user account control 4128. And when I went through this before, there's actually a really excellent blog. I don't remember who wrote it. Let's go ahead and get that pulled up because you can check it out yourself. I did a much deeper dive into this. I don't know if it's called exploit. During the Retro1 machine. Pre2k computer accounts exploit. The pwn box, one issue it has is you get captured on Google. This is the blog. I will drop this in the live stream if you guys want to check this out. But it was from this blog that I got that LDAP query. Anyway, so I'll let you check that out on your own. I don't need this open anymore. Let's go back over to our terminal. And step number one, I want to grab this for my notes because even if this isn't the way in, it's still a good thing to have in our notes. So I'm going to copy all of this. I want to get the full command right there. So I'm going to copy and we'll jump over to our notes. And I guess that's one weakness that I just discovered about the pwn box is the netexec on the pwn box isn't fully up to date. Whoops, wrong thing. Whereas the netexec on my personal VM is fully up to date and it has that module built in. So we can go ahead and delete this to-do list for now. And we'll go back down here. I'll do an H2 and we'll say searching for pre-2K computer accounts with netexec and manual LDAP query. Which what I just showed you guys is super important in your career as a pen tester or an ethical hacker. There's going to be many times, whether it's in the field or on an exam, that your normal tool that you rely on doesn't work for whatever reason. So it's always a good idea to be able to do enumeration and attacks in multiple different ways. So you saw that the pre-2K module didn't work for me because netexec wasn't updated. I suppose I could have just updated netexec, but I wanted to show you an alternative way of doing the same search by doing a manual LDAP query with netexec. And when we do that, we can look at these. We have an FS01 computer. FS01 again, and an FS02 it looks like. So let's just try that. We have FS01 and FS02. Let's see if either one of those will give us authentication. I'm just going to clear my screen just so it's a little bit cleaner. And we'll try this. I'm going to do FS01. And we'll do FS01 for the password. And we don't need the query. I just want to see if the creds work. And I don't actually know if I need the $ in the actual computer username there. And look at that. That actually did work. You can see it with the plus icon right there. Now I'm curious about the FS02 one. Am I able to compromise both those accounts? And then we'll have to look at the permissions of what those machine accounts have. I am. So actually both of those machine accounts are vulnerable to that. So let's go ahead and highlight this. And we'll jump back over to our notes, and I will say like H2 compromising FS01 $ and FS02 $. And I'm just going to split this apart so it's a little bit cleaner in our notes. But hey, we successfully have 2 more accounts that we have compromised. Looking over at chat, Dominic said, this is really cool. I'm glad you enjoy it. What up, Semi? Good to have you here. But looking over at our notes, we have both of these accounts compromised. Now, if you've been following along with many of these Active Directory series that we've been doing, each time you compromise a new user or a new account, one of the best things you can do is enumerate that account. What privileges and what access do we have with that current account? So let's dive over, jump back over to our BloodHound results and look up both of these accounts in BloodHound and see, are there any interesting attack paths that we should dig into? So let me jump over to this. We'll open up BloodHound and let's search for FS01 first. That is the computer account we just compromised. I'm going to click into it. And can I zoom in on this a little bit? It won't let me zoom in, guys. Oh, if I could I don't know why I keep making these hide. I don't know what hotkey I'm doing. There, they're back, whatever. So I apologize, this looks small over here, but I'll show you a few things that we want to dive into. If I scroll down to the bottom, what we want to know is, do we have any outbound execution rights? Which it does not look like we do. We'll scroll through outbound object control. Okay, we have group delegated object control. But this would be, if I click onto this, because I'm not used to this. The older version of BloodHound is throwing me off here. And the newer version, you can just look at it. But it just says the members of domain computers have generic write access to the computer FS01. Which doesn't do a whole lot for us. What's this computer? Adam. Wait. Oh, FS02. Oh. Unless that's just the same thing. Oh, no. Okay. The members of the domain computers Retro2 VL have generic write access to the computer FS02. But this might be interesting. The members of the domain computers have generic write access to ADMWS01. So that's where this might come in handy for us, because if we look at our group memberships, you can see that our user right here, or our, not user, rather our computer account is a member of domain computers. Therefore, potentially, we would be able to use that membership permission that we have to do a generic write, which once again, I don't know how to make this bigger in this version of BloodHound. Not about. If I go to settings, oh, no, not collapse threshold. I don't know how to make it larger, so I apologize for those of you watching on a mobile device. If I right click this and click help, can I zoom in on this at least? No, I can't. All right, whatever. The members of this group, which is a group we're in, have generic write access to this computer. Generic write access grants us the ability to write to any non-protected attribute on the target object, including members for a group and service principal names for a user. So I believe we could do a targeted like Kerberos attack or resource-based constrained delegation. Shadow credentials, that's what I'm thinking of. So cool thing about BloodHound, and this is a little bit different in the newer version of Community Edition, it just looks a little bit different. But when you right click and help, we can see info, so we know what privileges we have. If we're attacking from a Windows machine, it will give us the commands to run from Windows. If we're attacking from Linux, it will give us the commands to run from Linux, and also OPSEC. So OPSEC isn't as important on a pen test, but it is important on a red team engagement. And it's sort of confusing. People often confuse those two terms, but they are different. When you do a pen test is very much a time-specific engagement. You may only have 5 days or 10 days to do an internal pen test on hundreds or thousands of hosts. When you're doing a pen test, you generally can be as noisy as you want. The blue team knows that you're in the environment, and the goal isn't stealth. The goal is just finding as many vulnerabilities as you can find. On the other hand, when you're doing a red team engagement, that's much longer, and the focus is on stealth and remaining under the radar. So in a red team engagement, you really do want to pay attention to the OPSEC considerations so you're not caught by the blue team. We also have references, so some references that we can look at, which, by the way, I mentioned targeted Kerberosi, and I figured that was one of the attacks since we can set the service principal name. But for now, let's go ahead and maybe just copy this information for our notes and start planning out a potential attack path. So I'm going to do an H3, and we will say potential attack path to compromise whatever that other it sounds like admin, so admin workstation 01, which definitely sounds promising. So we'll say as FS01, we have generic write permissions. And we can do a code block maybe and just drop in the information right there in the code block, and word wrap is already on. And then we can go ahead and grab the Linux abuse information. So it says, first, if an attacker does not control an account with an SPN set, a new attacker-controlled computer account can be added with Impacket's add computer pi example script. So we don't have to do this. We already have an account. And we now need to configure the target object so the attacker-controlled computer can delegate to it. Impacket's rbcd.py script can be used for this purpose. And finally, we can get a service ticket for the service name we want to pretend to be admin for. Impacket's get sdpy example can be used for that purpose. And then we can also use shadow credentials. To abuse this privilege, use pi whisker, which kind of adds almost like backdoor access to a computer. You know, we can also do a targeted Kerberos attack, and I can pull that up. If I click that, will it open it up? It will. But this would only be helpful if we're able to crack the hash, essentially. But given generic write and generic all writes over a target, we can modify most of the user's attributes, save for attributes related to delegation, and other protected components like SID history. However, we can change a victim's user account control to not require Kerberos pre-authentication, grab the user's crackable as rep hash, and then change the setting back. Looking through this blog, obviously looks very bad, but either attack should work. And here's the key, and this is what I mentioned when I pulled it up. This does depend on the target user having a weak or crackable password, but it's a nice alternative to force resetting the user's password. I would say, and I'm actually curious for those of you in the live stream who do pen testing, even when I'm able to do a Kerberos attack on an internal environment, I would say most of the time, the service account that I'm able to compromise or able to get the hash for, I'm not able to crack the hash. It is a good, random, secure password. I'm curious about those of you in chat, though, who do pen testing, if you ever have that. And especially for a machine. I don't think this is a likely attack in this situation, but still something to be aware of. Hey, Greg, we're working on Retro2 over on Hack the Box. All right, let's jump back over to our BloodHound information. And we can go to our Linux information right here. I think resource-based constrained delegation is going to be key. And so we can kind of work through this attack. I'm going to copy all of this. And we'll drop it into our notes. And we'll just say, although few attacks are possible, I think the most likely one is resource-based constrained delegation. Geez, I can't type. There we go. And I'm just going to drop in that information. Okay, that looks really bad. What if I just paste it in? Will it look better? No, not really. Okay, I'll clean that up later. But here's what's key. If we were doing this in the real world, before we actually perform this attack, we want to enumerate the machine that we are attacking. Is this machine actually, or is this attack actually worth pursuing? So let's go ahead and do that before we get hands-on with performing this attack. We'll jump back over to BloodHound, and this is the machine that we're going to attempt to compromise. So if I click into it, maybe. Guys, this older edition of BloodHound is throwing me off. Like in the newer edition of BloodHound, you just click into the path and it will update it up here. Do I actually have to type it in? Admin WS01. Okay. So if we look at admin WS01, what do we have? Outbound object control. We have first degree object control. And it looks like with this, we can add a member to services at retro.vl. So that seems like a very good attack path. Specifically, I can add myself to this group. And I don't have a good way to take screenshots here in the attack box. Another weakness, I suppose. But let's go ahead and add that to our notes. So I'm going to say potential attack path. Use compromise. What's that workstation? Admin WS01. Use admin WS01 to add self to services at retro.vl or retro2.vl. And then if we click into services, oh, it does update. Okay, cool. If we click into services, we have service accounts here. And if we scroll down to outbound object control, oh, we actually have nothing. Oh, we have RDP privileges though. Okay, so then in the services group, then we can RDP into our main machine that we're attacking, this BLN01 Retro2VL. So then we'll say, using permissions from the services group, we can RDP into the primary machine, and that's the BLN01 retro2.vl machine. So I think that's going to be our best attack path moving forward. And I'm looking over at the recording. I think this is a good natural stopping point, especially for those of you who might be following along. Together, we have mapped out an attack path. But when it comes to learning Active Directory or learning anything in the field of ethical hacking, you do learn a lot by just watching someone go through it, but you learn a lot more by getting hands-on with the keyboard and digging into it yourself. So together, we were able to map out this attack path. We need to use RBCD to compromise the admin workstation. We're going to use the admin workstation to add ourselves to the services group. And then we're going to use the permissions from the services group that we're then able to RDP or remote desktop protocol, so get GUI access into the primary machine that's the target. From there, I'm guessing we have to work on privilege escalation, so that'll be fun to dig into. But really fun machine. I'm guessing this is the attack path. Maybe it's wrong. We'll find out in the next part. But in this video, I mean, we accomplished a lot of stuff. We compromised 2 more machines. We were able to enumerate on BloodHound to figure out a potential attack path. And in the next video, we'll begin working through this attack path step by step and see how much further we are able to get. But hey, thank you so much for watching. I have no idea how long this series is going to be because I'm going into it blind. I'm sure, although these steps look somewhat easy, there might be something that trips us up, or I might get stuck on something, but we'll figure it out as we go. So thank you so much for being on this series with me. Make sure you join me in the next video, and we will dive into this attack path.